didn't put in her so it's not going to her places. But next time you can do that, where it's going to your people too.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I think we're on Ezekiel chapter 5, aren't we?
I think so. Is it 5 or 6? I couldn't remember. I think it's 5.
I think it's 5.
Yes. Yeah. We finished with the bread, Ezekiel bread.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And Catherine, we are using the New American Standard because that's kind of what...
Okay, NASB?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the one that Emmy has.
Okay.
So...
Alrighty. That works. I don't have anything pulled up currently.
I'm going to pull it up in a screen share here.
Okay.
And so we can do that. Okay. Emmy, you want to read?
I will. As for you, son of man, take a sharp sword, take and use it as a barber's razor on your head and beard. Then take scales for weighing and divide the hair. On 1/3 you shall burn in the fire at the center of the city, when the days of the siege are completed. Then you shall take 1/3 and strike it with the sword all around the city, and 1/3 you shall scatter to the wind, and I will unsheathe the sword behind them. Take also a few in number from them and bind them in the edges of your robes. Take again some of them and throw them into the fire and burn them in the fire. From it a fire will spread to all the house of Israel. Thus says Adonai Yahovah, this is Jerusalem. I have set her at the center of the nations with lands around her. But she has rebelled against my ordinances more wickedly than the nations, and against my statutes more than the lands which surround her. For they have rejected my ordinances and have not walked in my statutes. Therefore, thus says Adonai Yahovah, because you have more toil than the nations which surround you, and have not walked in my statutes, nor observed my ordinances, nor observed the ordinances of the ordinances of the nations which surround you. Therefore, thus says Adonai Yahovah, behold, I, even I, am against you, and I will execute judgments among you in the sight of the nations. And because of all your abominations, I will do among you what I have not done, and the like of which I will never do again. Therefore, fathers will eat their sons among you, and sons will eat their fathers, for I will execute judgments on you and scatter all your remnant to every wind. So as I live, declares Adonai Yahovah, surely because you have defiled my sanctuary with all your detestable idols, and with all your abominations, therefore I will also withdraw, and my eye will have no pity, and I will not spare. 1/3 of you will die by plague or be consumed by famine among you. 1/3 will fall by the sword around you, and 1/3 I will scatter to every wind, and I will unsheathe the sword behind them. Thus my anger will be spent, and I will satisfy my wrath on them, and I will be appeased. Then they will know that I, Yahovah, have spoken in my zeal when I have spent my wrath upon them. Moreover, I will make you a desolation and a reproach among the nations which surround you in the sight of all who pass by. So it will be a reproach, a reviling, a warning, and an object of horror to the nations who surround you when I execute judgments against you in anger, wrath, and raging rebukes. I, Yahovah, have spoken. When I send against them the deadly arrows of famine, which were for the destruction of those whom I will send to destroy you, then I will also intensify the famine upon you and break the staff of bread. Moreover, I will send on you famine and wild beasts, and they will bereave you of children. Plague and bloodshed also will pass through you, and I will bring the sword on you. I, Yahovah, have spoken. This is the word of the Lord.
Ouch.
Needless to say, it sounds like the good Lord is done hacked off.
That is a good way of saying that, yes.
And indeed. I had to while you were reading, I had to sit here and kind of this sounds so much like Revelation chapter 8.
It does. It does.
Yeah, because in Revelation chapter 8, verse 7, it says a third of the earth was burnt up, a third of the trees burnt up, and all the grass was burned up. And then in verse 8, a third of the sea became blood. Verse 9, a third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. Verse 10, oh no, that's a third angel. Let's see, 11, a third of the waters became wormwood, and many people died from the water because it had become bitter. 12, when the fourth angel blew its trumpet, a third of the sun was struck, a third of the moon, a third of the stars, a third of their light might be darkened, a third of the day might be kept from shining, likewise a third of the night. So I mean, and then chapter 9.
I was just gonna say, I think this is one of those chapters that a lot of people use to say that Revelation is mostly about Israel, and definitely whenever God starts pouring out the judgments and the vials and the trumpets and all of that, that is definitely the vials, I think, is what it is. I don't have all of this in front of me at the moment because I'm still trying to get lunch around. But I think this chapter in Ezekiel is what a lot of people use to say that Revelation is mostly talking about the tribulation happening, because that is God's like last judgment on Israel, and it is his last attempt to get them to wake up and recognize him fully and completely as Lord and Savior.
Right. I know what would you call them? Historicists,
I think.
Yeah, the ones like the preterists and partial preterists, and we've been kind of studying into some of that lately. They believe this happened, and then the full preterists, it seems like some of them anyway, believe that this is all like symbolic, and it's like apocalyptic language, right? And I think it could be a little bit of both.
It could be. Generally, from what I've read in the Bible, usually when God is using symbology, he says it's symbolic.
I agree.
He always tells you. So yeah. I think to say whenever he's like, I'm going to do this like I've never done it before and I ain't ever going to do it again, I think he's serious that he's literally going to do it or has done it.
Yeah, I agree. I think he does. It's like saying Jesus said, as in the days of Noah, so it will be, and at the end. And then people want to say, and then there's somewhere else. Where does it say that, like, it was destroyed with flood, it'll be destroyed with fire? I can't remember.
Right.
But it's like, but if you don't believe it's going to be destroyed with fire eventually, then do you actually believe it was destroyed with a flood? Because we have so much evidence of that. And then we have evidence. And then we have evidence of catastrophes since then that have been like huge, big, So I would dare say that from Ezekiel's time, we could go back and we could see archaeological evidence of big things, big things happened. And though most people don't want to give it a worldwide, birth, I think it does. I think,
yeah, absolutely. Because the Persian Empire, Babylon at that time, I think amassed almost all of Asia at that time. I mean,
Yeah, if
it
not
was
over
huge.
here. I mean,
Right,
we have, we have evidence today. I totally believe that, like, could the step pyramids in, Mesoamerica have been Babylonian to begin with?
Oh,
They could have been. I
maybe.
mean, it would kind of make sense. There are how many different kinds of pyramids in Mexico? I mean, there's
Yeah.
a lot of different kinds of pyramids in Mexico.
Mm.
Why wouldn't it make sense that they could have been built by different civilizations? We have evidence that those civilizations were coming over here, that they were going worldwide. There are step pyramids in Asia, like China, Japan, too. They just have been facaded to look different than what we consider usually a step pyramid to look like. So I think we do have evidence that this happened, worldwide, big time thing. And
There's
then,
definitely a lot of potential evidence for that. It just, yeah. I mean, you have the Bible does list several instances where there were some things that were just worldwide, and even just history has talked about how there has been, obviously there's been evidence for pretty much a worldwide ice age and worldwide earthquakes, and not to mention like Black Plague was pretty much worldwide. And so, yeah, whether that was this that God was talking
well,
about in
yeah, I
Ezekiel,
don't think the Black Plague was this, but could the Black Plague have been the Revelation situation?
right?
Oh, that's an
That,
interesting thought.
yeah, that's what I wonder, because we know our time frame in between, when Jesus was here and now has been jinked with. So what if that Black Plague isn't exactly where we have been taught that it is, and what if
Yeah.
it is actually part of this? I think it could be. I'm definitely not going to be dogmatic about this and say definitely sure, you know. But we've got evidence that there has been some kind of big catastrophe and
Yeah.
stuff that has happened
Yeah.
since Jesus was here.
But then, like, the big question I think we've got to ask too is, in this chapter in Ezekiel, was God using language for worldwide phenomenon, or was he only using language for the people of Israel?
Of Israel, which is a
Because,
good point. And that's where I think that prophecy has proven over and over again that it's multifaceted. So it almost always means something for Israel at the time. But if you consider the worldwide empires, I feel like there's more to it. If it's either butterfly effect that it ends up affecting the rest of the world, or that he's using Israel as a precursor, like he did Joseph in Egypt. You know what I'm saying? And he's using that as a precursor. Okay, I'm going to do this on a smaller scale so you guys get the point. And then later, it's going to mean something bigger to everybody else, and then maybe even something later.
right.
I'm to the point that I'm not in the futurist perspective anymore at all, but I'm not going to say some of the things that we're seeing today don't fall into prophecy.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
It's also one of those things too, like something that really stood out to me in this chapter is that he said very specifically, he's going to do something that he's never done before and he will never do again. And so that's worth like studying. Okay, is that the entire sequence of events? Is that one specific thing? Or is it, I'm doing this to Israel once, and I will never do it to them again. You know.
Well, I would. What I'm thinking, like, listen, thinking about how he said that you've got a third dying by the sword, a third dying by pestilence, and a third are scattered. I mean, Israel never really came back to the land. Like, they were scattered. Some did, but the whole, like, even as in the biblical record, they have never fully come back to the land. What they have today, that's not like these this Israel, right, coming back to the land. That's not who's in Israel right now. So that, to me, with you saying that, that's what I'm thinking, is that something happened during this exile, right, that scattered them everywhere. Because we even see that in the New Testament, when the gospel is going out, they go to the scattered, the dispersia of Israel first, and then it makes its way into the Gentiles also. So that, with you saying that, I'm thinking that may be what it is, because this exile, I mean, is mass. It destroyed Israel, and then of course the events later in 70 AD just finished it off.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I mean, because, what would be the difference between the two if it wasn't that? Because the judgment on Israel in Revelation, it is really a judgment on Judah, not all of Israel, because not all of Israel was there.
Right. Yeah, this is on Jerusalem, it says specifically.
Yeah.
This is Jerusalem. I have set her at the center of the nations.
Yeah, and that's where it is so important when studying stuff like this. We got to pay close attention to, okay, who's he actually talking to?
Yep.
And there's so much involved, and I'm right there. I think so much of prophecy is three-dimensional. It just, God is a multi-dimensional God, and so much of what he says is going to be that way too. But then he also is very poignant about, he's talking to you in your time. So,
Is that thunder, Emmy?
Yes, that is thunder.
We had a storm last night. I wonder if you're getting ours now. Oh my goodness. And your children are always having so much fun in the background.
They're freaking out right now.
They've got Dad to help. So
yes,
they're doing great. In case anybody's hearing the stuff going on in the background there. Emmy's children are well taken care of. Oh my goodness. Wow. Yeah, the issues last night whenever it was going through here. And I just roll over and go back to sleep. Paul ends up fussing with the babies.
It is loud. Yeah. It's like right overhead too.
We notoriously have somebody in the comments complaining about the excess noise in the background, and it's like, oh guys, we're doing the best we can. I turned off my fan, I turned off my external hard drive, and I just but if anybody wants like the transcript, I can get that in the membership if you want to join the membership and get the transcript in there. But anyway, we've been going over an hour on these videos, and I hate doing that every single time. So I kind of feel like this was a pretty big chapter to digest. Mm-hmm. And it could give everybody just a little bit of time to go maybe do a word study on, to type in third. And the word third comes up 171 times. And of course, not all of it is talking about a third of things, not making it. But it's definitely kind of worth looking at and seeing how many times the Lord might have done that. So, yeah. If it's okay with you girls, I think I'll let that
Yeah.
let
Yeah,
that be.
I think this is a good place for people to just kind of digest and do some of their own research and look up the meaning of words and stuff, and then just kind of decide if and have a good discussion in the comments too about not hateful discussions, good discussions. There's a difference.
Yeah.
About whether how it fits in, if it's just specifically for the Israelites at that time, just for the city of Jerusalem, or if it was also for them and also for us, if it was worldwide or localized, and good arguments for backing up whatever your thought or opinion is on that. Because there's a level of prophecy too, that it's like we're not meant to fully know and understand what is going on, because it's battle plans.
Battle
It is
plan.
battle plans.
Yes.
Yes, I think that was such an important point that you've made so many times, Catherine, is that the battle plans, because I'm like, every time somebody tells me they have it all figured out, I'm like, but what did the seven thunders say that was sealed up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've gotten to where I kind of like, start backing up, and I bet whenever somebody thinks they've got it all figured out, because it's like, ooh.
Yeah. And I think the closer we get to Christ's return, the more we're going to understand and have figured out. But trust me, if we've got it figured, if we're coming to a point of finally figuring it out, the Satan is no idiot and has thousands of years of history and life that he has lived. And if you think you've got it figured out, he has absolutely way more figured out than you do. So,
plus the master of deception here.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes.
I've had several questions on
And division.
Yeah, is what going on part of his deception, that he's trying to deceive us into believing that some of these things are coming to pass? And that could
Right.
be. That could be.
Right.
I mean,
it very much, just like many of the jihadists and stuff believe that if they can make a certain sequence of events happen, they can cause the end of the world. And I think the Satan has that kind of mindset too. If I can cause a certain sequence of events to happen, that'll trigger the domino effect, and then I'll be on top of it because I caused it.
Yeah, I think that was kind of part of the issue with the Georgia Guidestones before they got tore down. I think that was, if we can do this, we can, push CERN. That's very obviously what they've outright said it, that that's what they're trying to do. So
because humans and Satan especially love to feel like we are in control.
Yes.
And if we can make things happen, if we can train the bear to stand up on a little podium and wave at the crowd, then we obviously have control of the bear, and he will never turn on us.
Right.
Kind of attitude.
Oh, that is a great analogy. I love that.
Yeah, I can invite a demon in my life because I can control the demon.
I put a salt circle around him.
Exactly.
He should be under my control.
Yes, exactly. I burned my sage and did all the things so I can control it. And it's like, oh my goodness.
You're making my stomach churn.
Yeah.
It worked with the Tesla car. Why didn't it work with him?
Oh my goodness. But yeah. I mean, you picked up the third thing, and I was wondering that too. I was like, so what is the third representative? Like, what does that mean? But also to the point too of the living and active. That's something that Donita and I talk about a lot, is that the word of God is living and active, right? And I looked it up the other day, and the word that is translated active is energy.
Oh, frequency. Yeah, frequency.
There's that.
Yeah.
That just added a whole nother level to like my Bible study. I was like, all right then.
Yeah.
Yep. Speak it into existence. You know, those affirmation people aren't all that off. They again, we humans love to try and control things, do it our way. But there's also a lot of that absolutely makes sense. So
Yeah. Exactly. Oh yeah, Rain Girl, the chief lover.
Yes.
He can make things look a certain way, but God always has complete control. And that's what we need to realize too. And the more they try to divide us, and I know I said this yesterday in my live, but we need to remember the more that they, quote unquote, try to divide us, the more division that there's trying to be caused, the more we need to step back and remember to be loving and understanding and caring, and
do
concentrate
not
on those.
engage.
Yeah, do not engage.
Yeah.
Do not engage.
That's happened to me so many times over the last, I don't know, probably 24, 48 hours. I've just seen random things and I'm just like, also didn't say my piece to Jim.
I guess a lot of people are losing their jobs right now, for saying and not nice things about what has happened. And I hate for anybody to lose their job, especially somebody who needs the job. But at the same time, that kind of person probably was on their last straw with the job in the first place, because they obviously don't have a good attitude. But how many of us during the 2020 debacle and all that was going on there had to be so careful about what we said, and how many people lost their jobs, and how many people, including yours truly here, really, really frustrated. I mean, threats on life and the whole kit and caboodle. Where it was by the end of 2021, I did not feel safe at work. So, I feel like if you're going to open your mouth and you're going to say something mean, there you go.
You've just proven what kind of a person you are if you're going to do that. So there is absolutely zero benefit to opening your mouth and saying something rude, hateful, or anything that is not edifying.
Yeah.
On either side. Yes.
Yes.
And
yes.
it's one of those things, especially when emotions are high, there's a lot of conflict going on. I've definitely learned, because I've always been one of those people that will just pop off and not think twice about it.
I don't know.
But I've learned over the years that the more quiet I am, the better off I am. And not just quiet, but also observing. I'm not going and burying my head in the sand. I'm not ignoring things. I'm actually just being quiet, listening to people, listening to both sides of the story. And then usually able, as a result, to, once people have calmed down enough, been able to, bring some common sense and decency back to the table as a result.
I'm reading this book, and I shared it with people. I'm not Catholic, but I have some beautiful Catholic friends. This is Rediscovering Catholicism, and it should be called Rediscovering Your Faith. And I'm getting into reading it, and one of the things that I underlined is talking about just kind of people today in our modern age, and especially out here in the West. They want to witness someone, anyone, just one will do, living an authentic life, someone whose words are supported by the authority of his or her actions, someone striving humbly but heroically to live what is good, true, and noble in the midst of and in spite of the modern climate.
Mm.
I'm like, boom. Mic drop on that one.
Yes, that's what I did.
Yeah. People, we are absolutely seeing that where people are starving for authenticity.
Yes.
And that is hard to do. We have a culture that has completely armored up, and we don't even know most of the time who we are. And that's why we see so many like midlife crises happen and stuff, because and rise in depression and stuff, because we haven't taken the time to figure out who we really are and what makes, how we are authentic. And because with the authenticity comes, before you can be truly authentic with yourself, you have to be vulnerable. And humans freaking hate vulnerability. We just hate to be vulnerable. It feels, well, vulnerable. It feels dangerous.
Yeah.
And so and then, we have this entire that we have to look a certain way and act a certain way and be a certain way. And I feel like, especially with women, we're supposed to be able to do it all kind of attitude. And and you definitely can't be vulnerable. You got to be tough, just like the guys. Even though on one hand we're telling guys they need to loosen up and show more emotion, then on the other hand we're doing the same thing, and we're trying to act all tough and like we don't need anyone, we don't need anything, we're independent. And we definitely do not ever need to be vulnerable. But as a result, and as a lot of people are figuring out, we've completely lost ourselves and we don't know who we are, and we're just craving that authenticity and connection with other truly authentic people.
Amen.
Yeah. And I think so much of that too comes from just the lack of knowing God, like knowing who He is.
Yes, yeah, there's a lot of that too. And because, again, God is a very authentic person. He is who He says He is. I am that I am.
Yes.
And He's very clear on His boundaries. I love this. I hate that. This is okay. This is not okay. And that makes us uncomfortable. We like our boundaries to be respected, but we don't necessarily like to respect your boundaries, and especially if it means that we can't do whatever we want.
Yeah, that's something I've actually been wrestling with a lot lately, is how to understand that and how to teach it to my children, and like in a way that is healthy and according to the Word of God, because it can be very tricky. Because when you're like, well, but it says this here and this here and this here and this here, and you're trying to understand how it all fits together, like to be available, but then also you need to have time away to rest and be with God. And you need to, well, that's the one that I like come up with most often, being a mother of 12. So, hi, go to daddy.
I ran into something on TikTok today. Chloe, our oldest, had shared it with me, and it was an autistic person sharing that, and I'll just try to get the gist of it. There's a difference between autistic people and they're black and white. And some people are good versus evil black and white. And some people are fair versus unfair black and white. And this person had a very ungodly view of things. But I'm sitting here, but that's where, if you have the right perspective of the Bible, you can set and you can ask, what is good and fair? And my Gen X brain goes, life just ain't fair, get over it, people. But
there is that balance that you do have to strike, and that's the same you have to remind yourself of. We live in an unbalanced world.
We do.
We do live in an unfair world.
But while you're looking at the black and white, you could be able to say, okay, what is good and fair? What is bad and evil? Because if you looked at Hitler, for instance, are you going to say he was unfair or he was evil? And if you're a black and white on one side or a black and white on the other side, can you not agree that he was both bad and evil?
Mm. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So if that's the case, can there be some things, because this person was saying good can be, you can define good however you want to. And my thought is, well, you can say that, but whenever it comes down to it, good is clearly defined.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And pretty
And
much
good.
all across the world, we can very clearly define usually what is good.
Yeah.
The problem is
you
that
say-
humans want to have their cake and eat it too.
They don't want to have consequences.
Yes,
Yes.
we don't want to
That's
have
where it
consequences
comes.
for what we think is not so bad.
Yeah, because if they have consequences, then they both see that as bad, consequences bad, and consequences, as unfair, both ways, And I'm like, okay, so if you can see some things as both, unfair and bad, then you should be able to backtrack there and find what is also good and fair.
Yeah.
And I don't care how autistic you are,
Right.
you should be able to figure that out.
And for Christians, it is a constant just balancing act. And like,
and I don't
lately,
think non-Christians understand that. I think non-Christians think that we think in black and white based on biblical things, but no,
they
don't.
think we're judgmental. And I promise you, to any listeners listening to this, if you have had a Christian judge you and like Bible thump you, I'm going to say with pretty much 99% certainty that person had no relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
They just called themselves a Christian. They were in a club.
Yeah.
They weren't in a relationship with Christ. Because a true Christian is constantly in this balancing act of, I'm not here to condemn you. You are already condemned.
Mm-hmm.
My job here is to save you, but I can't save you unless you want to be saved. I can take a horse to water, but I can't suck through its butthole to make it drink.
See, this is why I cannot drink coffee while she's...
So this is what we have to deal with as Christians, is this constant balancing act. And then we do have to live in a world, like right now I've been kind of telling people that I'm in my Ecclesiastes era, and just a little bit depressy, and life is but a vapor, and the wicked get their rewards and looks really good, and they get the rain and they get the good crops, and the righteous get nothing. And we do run into these times and seasons in the world where it's just like you have to find that balance of things aren't fair, and sometimes the black and white get mixed up.
And every person in the Bible had that.
Yes.
It doesn't go through the Bible and say, oh, everybody who lives the Bible has this wonderful life.
Yeah.
No.
There were very hard things that happened.
Yeah.
And
you can't, and you find out too, the longer that you live a Christ-filled life, you find too that because the way the world is set up, you cannot just be absolutely dogmatic on things in the Bible, because one, like we were kind of talking, so much of it is battle plans. We don't know the answer to everything. And then two, each human being is an individual. And I learned this in hospice. And especially dealing with like dementia and stuff, because there was a lot of things that came up with patients where it's like, especially lying, because my husband, I'm pretty sure, is on the spectrum. And he would watch me sometimes work with one of my patients, and he'd be like, you just lied to that person. And I'm like, they have dementia. I cannot tell them the truth. They will not understand, and we will have an episode. So what I'm telling them is what their reality that they're seeing. So stuff like that where you're constantly going, okay, you can't be dogmatic in this case because this is happening with this individual person.
And I have a specific example I can share of that. When Paul's dad was in the nursing home and he was struggling, he'd been struggling with dementia for over 10 years. And he got a roommate who had a TV, which I always hated that whenever he had a roommate with a TV. So he's watching flooding in eastern Oklahoma on the TV. And I just go in there to visit, and he is just bawling because in his head, he was back in the Dust Bowl, and an infant had just died of dust pneumonia. So you can't tell him that's not real because it was very much real to him at the moment. So we had to comfort him because he was not understanding how there can be flooding and a baby just died.
Yeah.
And he could not understand that baby had died 70 some odd years before.
Yeah. And it just, so Christians are constantly in this balancing act of, we do live in a messed up, upside down world. We had an upside right world, like only partway through Genesis chapter 1. And then it very promptly got turned completely upside down. So now we're having to exist in this upside down world.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good way of putting it.
And what keeps us here, what keeps us going on the path that we're going on is the hope that we have in seeing the world right side up again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And we want everybody to be there.
Yes. That's Oh my goodness, how many times I've sat there and just like, God, haven't enough people just been condemned? Just save everybody, please, and let's get this all over with.
Right. There's
that's
some
not
days
how it
works. There's some days dealing with people. I'm like, Lord, I think the last one got saved. You want to go now?
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
It's a good thing he's the judge.
Yes.
Yeah. No joke. And, and that's something I've really been learning as I've been studying psychology a lot the last few years and stuff, which I know, like, a lot of people kind of get bent out of shape. A lot of Christians get bent out of shape about psychology, but there's a lot there, and we have brain science now to back up so much of it. So don't come at me, bro. But just studying it and learning, every time I turn around, every time I flip another chapter to another chapter in another psychology book, it blows me away how much we do not know the hearts of men. And every time I see that, where you think you've got someone figured out, you totally have this narcissist in this example figured out, and they're just a crummy human being, and then you flip the page and you realize what's actually going on. And you go, oh my gosh, I would have never guessed. Yeah. Gollum was Smeagol. Oh my gosh, And it just, and then you take your understanding as a Christian and realize that God does see that. Yeah. And adds a whole nother level to it, to where you're like, okay, yeah, you know what? I'll let you do the judging. And I'm going to stand over here and try not to be a backseat passenger driver. And
Yeah.
it just blows me away how it's like you really never know when somebody is saved or when they aren't, and what is actually motivating them and driving them. And there is so much there that we don't understand about the human brain, and each individual is such a unique being with their own, even though there's a lot of things that we all function the same way in, our background applications are totally different from each other.
Yeah.
And you've just got a complex thing there that every time I turn another chapter in another psychology book, I'm like, I am so glad I am not going to be judging all of these whacked up people, because this is going to be hard.
Yeah. My abnormal psych class was a lot of fun, but I absolutely felt the exact same way. It was like, this is wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before you judge where somebody is today, try to understand where they were before.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, our past doesn't make us who we are today. We don't have to live in that, but we are paying the consequences for our actions and unfortunately for the actions of others. And, and we do have to live with the aftermath of the things that the circumstances we were in our past. No matter how bad it was, with God's help and the help of brothers and sisters in the Lord, we can overcome and thrive.
Yeah. And I just had a thought with this Ezekiel 5 passage and the one quote of, I'm going to do a thing I've never done before and will never do again. There's been a lot of times that God said he would never do something again, but then the world still suffers from ripples of that event. Like, he promised he would never allow a worldwide flood to happen again, but we have small floods around the world, or localized floods, I should say, maybe not small, but localized. And then the world is still massively impacted from a worldwide event that happened. And so you have those ripples and stuff, and the consequences that come back and haunt us, even thousands of years later.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
So he may not ever need to lift a finger again and make something happen, but that's where prophecy, we can see it repeat itself sometimes, because he may not be doing it himself, but the consequences of those actions in the past.
In the same situation. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. We can put ourselves in the same situation and cause just a repeat of the same mess again. And there have been, things put in place that you can pee on the hot wire fence every single time, but you're going to have consequences every single time.
Okay, now that we have that visual, little boys have to try it at least once.
At least once, every single one of them. I swear, it is no joke. You can sit there and tell them till you are blue in the face exactly what is going to happen. And they will still try it. They just gotta know.
Oh my goodness.
It goes for sheep too. One sheep will watch a sheep get zapped, and then they all gotta line up and try it just to be sure.
Well, that is definitely why we're compared to sheep in the Bible, I can tell you that.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, this has been a good study. I've enjoyed this.
Yes.
Any closing words, lady?
Keep studying. Just keep studying. Like every time I read now, it's just more and more, and I find more connections within Scripture, more connections in the world. Just keep studying. Like I said, it's living and active. It's energy. Like when I saw that, I just
Yes.
Yeah,
And
that's
if you don't
amazing.
have somebody to study with, please join my community and let's study.
Yeah.
You know, let's do this.
Yeah, yeah. Join the community. Leave a comment with your thoughts, what you're finding in your studies, and keep the conversation going because that's
Yes.
really how we learn from each other.
Yes. Yes. Definitely. A lot of people are isolated today, don't have a church home that they feel comfortable in, you know, things like that. Are in circumstances in their families where they don't have family that understands where they're at. So, you know, join the community. We are your sisters in the Lord, and we would love to have you. So, okay. Well, thank you so much, ladies, for joining today.
thank you.
And we will see y'all later.